You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
It is Wednesday, November 20th, the Wednesday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Only fitting the Leafs to drop them like flies. I guess we are here as well in Leafs Morning Take. The Phil Kessel streak is over for Jay Rosehill. Will be back in the mix on Thursday for the first time this season. We welcome in Carter Hutton as my guest co-host. What's going on, Hutsy?
Buddy, I was back in the garage on the shelf. He had to dust me off to get me out here. Jay's been hot, man. Like working. Oh, there he is. I love it. I didn't notice that. I must have saved it. I can't see a puck behind me.
Yeah, that's back to your days with the Arizona Coyotes. Things are great here. I guess it was Phoenix. Was it Phoenix when you were on them or Arizona? I can't remember.
Arizona. We were Arizona, I think we were called. I didn't last very long. 3 games, I think 7 goals against the game was my average. So it was a tough run, but we got the contract and we rode off into the sunset.
I love that. This is a throwback to you, paying homage to you in the back set. We got Rosie in the mix here. Who knows what's gonna show up in my backdrop here? But dude, lots to cover. Great to have you back in the mix here on the show. The Boston Bruins firing Jim Montgomery. I want your initial thoughts on this because I got some thoughts as well.
Insane, honestly. I thought it was so premature, truthfully. Like I think his hands were tied with the lineup they have and what they have going on. This is a guy that literally not removed from setting history with the Boston Bruins, right? This is a team that moves in the right direction, a player's coach. I guess I could feel it deteriorating a little bit when he's calling out Marchand, Pasta, not really getting that result. But like you look at their goalie they signed, that whole situation, he has nothing to do with the delay, Swayman missing training camp. And like you look at Swayman's number, when he was fired, they're not in the second wild card right now, but they were. If Swayman had a 905, we're not even sitting here having this conversation, right? So I feel like it's so out of his control, and teams are going to be lined up to hire Monty, in my opinion, Nick.
It is wild that I think I asked Barry Trotz this question last year when he came on the show before he ends up accepting that GM job with Nashville. Why would anybody want to be a head coach in the NHL? I guess the money's great, and I get it that that be a coach, but man, the shelf life of these guys lasts like a year and a half. And you look specifically at Boston, they let Bruce Cassidy go wins the Stanley Cup, and that's what Bruins fans are now doing. They're fearing for their lives. Jim Montgomery's going to go elsewhere and win a Stanley Cup. And I think it was just the easiest scapegoat, man, plain and simple. Like you can't fire an entire team. You can't trade the entire team. But when's the accountability going to be on the GM and the presidents and people like that who hire these guys to begin with and put these rosters together? Like you look at these roster, I could argue they've been overperforming for years now.
Yeah, I think you could too. Even the year that they set all the records with Swayman and Allmark winning the Vezina, like going into that season, we were like, this team's kind of dust, right? You look at their bottom 6 and they had some guys break out and some players play well. So it hasn't been like you're just looking at this like star-studded lineup where you're like, oh, no wonder why. Like anyone could coach this, right? Where I just find it tricky, right? It's like the GMs have so many bullets, right? And that first bullet always goes to the head coach, right? Let's get him out of there. Let's try to get that little new coach bump. But for me, the fact of the matter is I've been through a situation where Ken Hitchcock was fired and Mike Yeo came on and he was the assistant at the time. So he was kind of in this succession plan anyway with Hitchcock. But it doesn't really change the room, right? It's more on the players, right? Like I just don't think. I think now you're gonna have more players probably pissed off. That the fact of the matter is they just lost a guy that they like because Monty is known as a players coach. So again, I'm with you on this one. It seems premature. Like what else do you need to do? Like you look at his winning percentage and you look at that tweet, 41 times in 184 games he's lost in regulation. That's bananas. Any team would kill to have a coach like that, and we're just letting him go in Boston left and right.
It's bonkers, and it just shows you and proves to you why coaches are taking all this money now, right? Like that's the bigger story for me is the amount of money just thrown away by all these NHL teams. Like we know the statistics the last couple of years. I think it's been 19 or 20 coaching changes. Just letting guys like paying guys not to coach for you, I think is insane. But it just shows you the trend and the theme, and this always happens in the sporting world, specifically in the NHL. Looking for that new coach bump. And I just wonder if they get it with a guy who's already been on their bench and Joe Sacco, right?
Yeah, that's my worry, right? Is like it's different when a new coach comes in and changes thing, but maybe behind the scenes there was friction where Sacco wanted to do certain things another way and Monty wouldn't move on stuff. Because there is that does go on. Trust me. Like there is times where a head coach is set in his ways and he won't really let the assistant have any reign on it. So who knows? I just think there's only so much you can do with what you have to at times. And especially in a league now where there's so many teams and there's a lack of superstars, it becomes to get a bit watered down, especially when you're trying to piece things together on a team that's been good for so many years. At some point, that salary cap era is going to hit you in the cycle here and you have to rebuild.
Huts, we're going to jump into a lot on today's show. I got to ask you about your boy Linus Ullmark, though, dude. We've had him on this show a couple times. What are you seeing from Ullmark? It seems like the same old story for the Ottawa Senators. I watched the majority of that game against Edmonton. They can't get a save. I'm sorry, they can't get a save right now.
Yeah, it was tough last night. And the way they defend, and even going back to that Philadelphia game, I felt like they were moving in the right direction. I go back to that Boston game where they locked it down in the third period. Then he makes one big save in overtime. They go win the game. Then he goes into Toronto and shuts out the Leafs, right? Not that he was busy, but he was steady, right? I was on Leafs After Dark that night, and it was just, a steady game. It wasn't anything crazy. And then I go to that Philly game, and it's just absolutely just struggling, right? Fighting it off. The Mishkov overtime winner, just a horrendous goal. And then last night, just can't get a timely save. Yes, you're playing against one of the most dynamic teams in the NHL offensively, but I just feel like they just can't get things going. And for him, he hasn't been that rock we've seen. So maybe it is a product of Swayman and Ullmark being, maybe their magical hug was where it all, that last time they could really get it done. But it's been disappointing, I think, for Ottawa so far.
Yeah, to say the least. And I think a lot of it's about the system. That team is incomplete right now and very inconsistent. Threw up another dud against the Edmonton Oilers on Tuesday night. Leafs Nation, we know you've got thoughts, takes, and opinions, and now's your chance to share them. Please hit that link in the show description or in the YouTube chat, which I'm about to post. Fill out our quick survey. Not only will you help us build content you actually want to see, but you're also throwing your hat in the ring to win a $250 Fanatics gift card. And guess what? We've got multiple ones to give away. It's a quick minute of your time that could score you something super sweet. Don't wait. This chance ends on November 29th. So how about somebody wins, gets that $250, and gets a retro Carter Hutton Maple Leafs jersey, one that was never worn, actually, right?
I know. Yeah, would be sick. I have a Marlies jersey, and honestly, I could use it because I donated to a charity here. Nick, this is a good story. So I got to donate to a Ronald McDonald House charity golf tournament in the summertime, and my buddies send me a link to a Facebook marketplace. Someone's selling a signed Carter Hutton jersey for $75. So I actually get my buddy to buy the Carter Hutton signed jersey, my own jersey, so I could donate to another charity to save a few bucks, right? Because these jerseys don't go on trees for us ex-players,
Yeah, that's ridiculous. The best thing about this is you somehow have a headshot with a Maple Leafs uniform on. Is that photoshopped, I guess?
I think so. I think it's just Photoshop from my Arizona. Because but hey, I was on the Leafs. I was there for a bit. I got to shower with them, so that's official.
Okay. That's really good. No, that's I always maintain that in beer league hockey. If you shower with the team, you're an official member of the team. But yeah, you were officially a member of the Maple Leafs. And I do recall that vividly. You were picked up because they were going through some injury. Was it during the pandemic? And there was massive crease concerns and nobody could stay healthy. They picked you up as sort of insurance, right?
Yeah, it was the year after. We were back to normal play, and I was in Arizona. I was on the IR. I was hurt my ankle. I was toast. I was ready to be done. And they traded me. It was a contract kind of dump. Armstrong had agreed to it. And then next thing you know, I was there. But away she goes.
Yeah, well, that's great. Great to hear that you showered with the team. But, you always hear the most important things here on Leafs Morning Take. Anyways, we had a fun little interview we did on Monday, touting and promoting the NHL or the CHL Prospects Challenge coming up as Team CHL takes on the United States and a highly touted netminder. And it's fitting, and it was only interesting how it worked out that it was Brampton Steelheads goaltender Jack Ivankovic, because I actually know James Richmond, the head coach there in Brampton. Before that, it was Mississauga. He was a lot of fun, great puck handler, and highly touted, expected to be the first goalie off the board. We're going to play that interview a bit later on.
Yeah, it was cool getting to talk to him. And I think it's just nice to see how well-rounded he is as a younger player, right? I think these guys have to mature so much quicker than when we used to, because we look at this. I was talking about this earlier. You look at Dustin Wolf and Devin Levi, the difference of the matter of Dustin Wolf is playing some great hockey right now, but he had time to play in the minors and mature and become a real pro and be ready for the NHL, where Devin Levi was solely highly touted, but they brought him in right away and he's taken his bump. Now he's back in the American League, right? I think that sometimes it delays the process. So I think these younger guys, younger and younger, there's more pressure on him. He seems like he's got a great head on his shoulders heading into obviously a great future in hockey.
Yeah, and I think lucky for him, as you referenced, like some of the younger netminders coming up. I remember going into the season, Spencer Knight started. It was like, holy crap, this guy's the real deal. And just look at the turbulence. Same for Ottinger. Like I feel like guys, and there's exceptions, they don't really find their footing till 24 or 25. Like look at Toronto, and in the case of Anthony Stolarz, he's like the ripe age of 30 has really found his game at the NHL level. So I always temper expectation, but Huts, I'll say this country needs a goalie and really, really badly. Like I'm almost at the point where you should come back and be the goalie for the Four Nations team.
Well, let's not get carried away here, Nick. But I know what you mean, though. It is tough, right? I think we're just so foreign to this, right? I know we haven't had international play in a while, but for years growing up, like it was Carey Price, Brodeur, Luongo. You know, we can name off so many different goalies from Canada. We always had a guy or a plethora of good goalies that could start. Where now it's like flip a coin. Like who are you going to start? And the Jekyll and Hyde of all the guys is what's tough, right? Like we're going to be starting a goalie probably at the Four Nations Cup that has a sub 900 save percentage, which is very intimidating when we look at some of the other teams, what they're going to offer, especially the United States. I think you'd probably take the top 4 or 5 guys and they would start for Canada right away.
I'm not kidding. If Anthony Stolarz was Canadian, he would be my number one guy right now. He's been incredible. We're going to talk about the crease. Unfortunately, he's American, but you're right. Like, I guess Binnington's the number one. There's no bona fide number one for this country, but he's sub 900 right now. And that's a big concern, I think, for this country as you get set for the Four Nations in a couple months' time. Make sure to tune into tonight's edition of the Leafs Nation After Dark with Zach Phillips. Don't forget that. I can't believe we're at the quarter pole of the season, a very depleted Maple Leafs lineup. So very curious to see how they come out in this game. Don't forget to get those super chats in at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit LeafsNation.com. Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video is here, the exclusive home for the NHL on Monday nights in Canada. Coming up next Monday, November 25th. It's another all-Canadian matchup as the Ottawa Senators host the Calgary Flames. We'll see if Dustin Wolf, who has been on fire, starts in that game. You can watch Prime Monday Night Hockey on Prime Video at no added cost through your membership. Just check out the sports section when you're inside the app. If you currently don't have a Prime membership, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial. Additionally, students are able to sign up for a 6-month free trial at amazon.ca/Amazon Prime. Prime Monday Night Hockey. It's on Monday. It's on Prime. You had a chance to check out any of those Prime broadcasts yet?
I have. I honestly love the warm-up. I was talking to my wife about that the other day. The game was on and I had it on and I missed the warm-up part and I was explaining to her like how cool it was. And maybe it's the no commentary, just the fact that they just show the players. And for me, something that I miss, like there's certain times people always ask me, like, what do you miss about playing? And the warm-ups is one of those ones where it's just like you're like the music's playing, you're kind of have this feel, everyone's kind of getting amped for the game. And I think they do a really good job of showing that. And the feed's been great. So it's kind of unique seeing a couple different people on there. And I think they've done a great job so far.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think obviously every game is very different, but I will say the Maple Leafs have had a lot of success. And I'll just put this out there. Their next Prime game is December 2nd. Tyler Bertuzzi, TJ Brody making their returns to Toronto. And so Connor Bedard will be in town as well as the Maple Leafs host Chicago. So looking forward to that one. Hut's also looking forward to tonight's game against the Vegas Golden Knights. You talk about a depleted lineup, not playing tonight, in addition to Ryan Reeves, who's suspended, Matthews, Yarncroke, Pacioretty, David Kampf, and now you add Max Domi to the mix. We know he's been a bit banged up as of late, officially placed on IR. Prior to the morning skate today, Nikita Grebenkin has been called up. This is getting mighty interesting, isn't it?
It is. They're dropping like flies right now, Nick. And we got guys going to Germany. There's so many different storylines right now. And for a team that seems to be just churning forward, and I hope they can keep this rolling, right? Giving guys a little bit more of an opportunity. Guys are going to get a little bit extra playing time, be in different roles. They need to keep moving forward, right? Because we always talk about American Thanksgiving and just, where your team is at. But injuries can really derail that, right? And I think tonight is going to be a very good test because the Vegas Golden Knights team is going to bring it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think of the Domi front, and I feel this way about most guys, especially in November, especially when you look at this Maple Leafs team. They're winning hockey games left and right, which is great to see, don't get me wrong, but get them right. I think the important thing to stress, which they've been adamant about in this whole Matthews process, is the schedule, which I understand they have 4 games for the rest of November, 2 games this week, 2 next week. So I think if you're going to sit some guys or get them right, get them healthy, I think it's right now on the Domi front. From my understanding, he's eligible to return on Sunday against Utah. They're probably going to need him again because they're so banged up, specifically up the middle. But I don't want this lingering all season long when it comes to Max Domi. And it's quite clear and definitive. And I don't know if there's any correlation. There has to be between his play and lack of point production, right? I think it's 13 games in a row, man. He hasn't registered a point, hasn't scored this season. Honestly, I think just the night off will be beneficial and actually be a positive, regardless if he's banged up or not, or he is banged up.
I know. I agree. Sometimes a little bit of break. I felt like that throughout my career, sometimes where I would get a setback or an injury and I'd be able to just have some time to, recollect yourself. Because when you are playing, games just come and come and come, and it's hard to really have a reset. So my point with Domi is I never watch his game and I feel like he leaves you wanting more offensively. Yes, he doesn't shoot the puck enough, but he always is working hard, right? He is a guy that, he is trying to create, but at times it just seems like there's just a little bit more you can expect from him, especially on a team where it is so top heavy. So I think this could be a great reset for them. And for me, I just look forward to this matchup tonight here because it's at home. I think they need to get rolling again here, especially now with this. I think you get a really good idea of where the system is at now. Defensively, how they've been able to, slow it down. And yes, I know they don't create as much off the rush, but I also feel like this team can do a better job here, no matter who's in the lineup, knowing how to play the right way.
Yeah, I think it's more about the system, and I think that's an excellent point. We're going to get a firm indication how things are looking, regardless of the player personnel in the lineup. You're rather thin up the middle. That's what intrigues me the most moving into this one against Vegas. But certainly, I think we're going to find out really, really quickly what the Leafs have in them, specifically with all these injuries right now. Nikita Grebenkin asked if he feels nervous ahead of his NHL debut. I feel perfect. Let's go work today. I like that. I like that. We saw a sliver of this kid in training camp. He had his moments. I from what I understand, it's been an up and down start so far this year in the AHL, but he's the next man up. Like Fraser Minten's up, Grebenkin's up. And it always seems like initially players get a boost, whether it's a season debut or NHL debut, and Grebenkin's sort of light right now. So I'm looking forward to this, just seeing what this kid can bring to the table initially, at least.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is that benefit of playing on emotion, right? He's going to be pumped up and he's going to be ready to play. And I like that answer, right? It seems like he's confident, he's ready to go into it. Because for some guys who maybe understand Toronto better or the moment more, it can be a bit overwhelming. So I feel like him going into it and having that energy, right? Because I think you can direct it in the right. I don't know if it's sustainable, right? I always talk about that with goaltenders where you see younger goalies come in and play very well right away. And then that sustainability starts to drop out because it's hard to play with emotion all the time, right? But I think this should be a big boost here tonight for some guys getting a huge opportunity for the Leafs.
At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Now, naturally, the big question is who the hell is playing center with Kampf and Matthews and Domi and all these guys out of the lineup? That's why it didn't shock me at all. We've been talking about this for like the better half of the last year. Why haven't they tried Mitch Marner up the middle? Well, according to Craig Berube, it's a conversation the two have had the last little while. Do you like that look? Potentially looking at Marner up the middle? How about that?
Yeah, I think for right now, like it's kind of all hands on deck, right? Like you have to do what you have to do at this situation. And Mitch is such a skilled player and so well rounded. I could see him fitting in well. My problem is, how good does this experiment go well? And then what? And then where we're sitting here being like, hey, how do you pull him out of there? Right. That'd be my only concern moving forward when the pieces start to fall back into place. But he's such an exceptional player that understands the game and has so many good reads that I think he will be successful at it. I just don't know the availability as you move forward with this, him at center.
Well, I think he checks boxes first and foremost. I think he's pretty decent on draws. He takes some sometimes. He's got the speed. He's the attention to detail defensively. Like he's always a guy who's in conversation for the Selke every season. He makes some amazing plays. We saw it in OT over the weekend against Edmonton. That's why I was always stunned. Like this whole Nylander conversation came up, but the Marner one never did. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's his sort of attachment, if you will, to an Austin Matthews, and they have a lot of chemistry together. But like, let's not forget back in junior, I believe Mitch Marner played center for the London Knights. Like, honestly, I'm not kidding. Like, this is something I would try because I actually think it could work. And I think, honestly, there's a better chance of Marner up the middle working than Nylander, in my opinion. I just think the way he covers the ice and the way he plays defensively, much different than a guy like Nylander.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the way that Nylander plays too, how he cheats for offense, and he's going to be a little more chances to float on plays. And Nylander's one of those guys that you just take it or leave it, right? This is the way he plays. And at times it can kill you because you watch it and it hurts. But then at the same times, it's almost what you love about him, right? Is how his give a shit meter is low, but it also makes him just such a dangerous player. Where Marner, he's going to be all over the ice. He's going to make good plays. So it is a tricky thing. But like you said, I agree. I think that it's the tie to Austin Matthews, right? Where these two are in sync and they create so much offense. It's really hard to pull him away from him. But obviously with Matthews out and in the situation they're in dire need of getting somebody up the middle, I think it's a great experiment to go with, especially on a team that's playing very well now defending.
Huts, I know you've been locked in on the Maple Leafs. There's never a dull day. Like, we were joking behind the scenes yesterday. We were getting set for this show yesterday. It was like Tuesday. Rosie made Rosie's like, oh, what a quiet day, easy, simple show. I'm like, never say that in Toronto. Next thing you know, the Minten news hits, the call up, then Matthews is spotted in Munich or whatever it was, seeing a specialist, and all hell broke loose yesterday. But what was your reaction? What would a player's reaction? I always like this. You're a former National Hockey Leaguer. You're in the league a couple years back now. What's a player's reaction? Like, they obviously know this stuff, but when you see one of your fellow teammates go over the pond overseas to see a doctor, what's going through your mind, especially when it's Austin Matthews?
It's just like the new age NHL, right? I feel like Rosie, you probably touch on this too. Like when I first came in, it was like, go for a cold tub, get a massage, like you'll be fine. You'll get a little ultrasound. We'll get the laser on you. Where now these younger players, they take so much more pride in their health and specialists, where I think the two have merged together. When I played, it was always early in my career, you got treatment from the team. Nobody wanted you going to an outside source because they were worried that they weren't going to have hands on you. And now it's become more joined together where teams, these guys have specialists. Connor McDavid has Mark Lindsay. Perfect example, Jack Eichel dealing with his neck surgery, right? Where the Sabres didn't want him to get it. He was adamant because he went and saw his guys. So I feel like this is just the Leafs taking advantage of the situation of being involved with Austin, where I don't think if it would have leaked, they would have been as upfront about it. I also feel Austin Matthews, the Leafs are playing really well, so there isn't that pressure to like come back immediately. But all these guys, all these superstars have guys. You hear Nathan McKinnon talk about, he has a guy on staff that lives in his house. Like, it's something that's more and more common. Now everyone just wants to take better care of themselves because there's so much on the line for these young guys.
Yeah, but like, to me, it's more like you're in the middle of the season, not even middle of the season. This guy's going all the way to Munich. Like, if I'm media, if I'm a fan, how do I not get concerned? And I think they sort of went out of their way to be like adamant that like there's no setback, there's no surgery coming. But I think the lack of transparency actually hurts the story here, where it's like now speculation's underway. I got 15 billion people. I'm sure it's the same for you. What's going on with Matthews? Is it his arm, his back, his foot, his face? Got some hair comments there too. Like, it's just wild, especially in this market, how it can spiral out of control. And could only wonder how difficult that PR job is, working PR for the Maple Leafs, where it's like there is no like happy medium. Every day is just crazy roller coaster, I think.
It is crazy. And I agree. I think sometimes they make their own bed here too by not giving enough information and not being transparent about it. If he was headed to Turkey, I know he'd be going for a hair transplant. He could probably use one there. I got a couple of buddies that went for some new turf, but
Nice.
I also think that there is the benefit of like, these guys are superstars and they have what they have and they're going to accommodate them. So it can be a bit, it doesn't surprise me literally in the slightest, right? I know from the outside looking in, but guys are so high maintenance and they have specific things they want to get. But again, I feel like this transparency thing is so tough with injury relation, right? And even like doing starting goalies, right? For the company with Daily Faceoff.
Yeah.
There's nights where you don't even know who's starting. And there was times I dealt with that as a goalie where I would be coming to the rink in the morning of a game, not knowing if I was starting or not. Like, I'm in my third, like, just tell us who's playing. It doesn't matter. The team, like, you're not going to scare the other team by them not knowing who's playing, right? So I think sometimes it gets exhausting, but I think teams create this own problem at times.
This chat's just going haywire. Lemmy's Phlegm writes in, I used to do a bump before Friday Night Shinny at Chestwood Arena. Worked every time. I would not advise anybody to do that. Maybe some smelling salts, but man, like, some of the reaction from this Matthews thing is out of control. And I understand people are jokesters and they're funny, but like, if Matthews is doing anything hair related, why the hell would he do it like during the Leaf season? Like, that's the dumbest shit I've heard in my life. I would just tuck away, peek away from the crowd. I know a bunch of people have done it. They go MIA in July and August. They come back in September. It's like, holy, the hell happened to you? But I think it would be hilarious if Austin Matthews came back and he's got like dreadlocks or something.
Yeah, he's got the ring, all the red dots there. He's got the new hairline, and yeah, that would be nice. He could use it, but I don't know. I think I'm fortunate. I can't say I got a decent head of hair, but if it ever hit me, who knows how I would react. But who knows? I agree. I just think that everything is so secretive and it's so tricky. And I know the NHL made a comment that they're not really going to budge on that, but it's not like you don't know, like it's not per body injury, like, or if you watch a guy get hurt, like, you know, it's his shoulder, you know, it's that guys aren't going to, like, Austin Matthews is going to have to play hard minutes no matter what his injury is, no matter if someone knows about it. It's not like they're like going to try to hit him even harder. He's going to have to play tough minutes no matter what goes on when he comes back.
Just bizarre. And again, this has been a story and a narrative that just doesn't go away. What the hell is going on with Austin Matthews? Every year there's something. In the Stanley Cup playoffs, we joked about it on the show the other day, where it's like in 45 years from now, when Austin Matthews writes a book, maybe we find out why the hell he missed those games in the Boston series. The good news is that this team plays well without him, but there just always seems to be mystery around the star players and why the hell they can't play for this team to begin with.
I know. Yeah. At times it's just, I feel like that is part of the process, though, is like you have to find a certain kind of person, player to play in that market, because it is. No, I couldn't imagine starting my career. Like, I started in Nashville is really where I cut my teeth, where it was like, hey, Rene's playing. And it was like, oh, some other guys in that. If I played good or bad, nobody cared, right? Where being in Toronto every waking moment, you need to be able to, I think Austin Matthews is the perfect player for that. William Nylander's a great player, but at times it can be a bit overwhelming, even though you're expected to perform, but there's so much extra pressure being in this market.
Via Puckpedia, by the way, it looks like David Kampf has been moved to LTIR. Same with Max Pacioretty yesterday. So just some shuffling of the board when it comes to the cap as well here, Huts.
Yeah, there's going to be some tiptoeing around, especially the way the Leafs like to be right near it. So there is some movement, but the main concern, I think, for this team is the fact of the matter is, you know, where is that offense going to come from tonight? From at times not being able to create it. You know, it can't be Mitch Marner every single night here for them, but I think this is going to be a good opportunity for some players to work their way up into the lineup. You know, I look for Bobby McMahon to stay hot. He's going to get more of a role here up front. So it's going to be a challenging tonight against a Vegas team who can be stingy at times.
Another guy I'm looking at is Fraser Minten, who will make his season debut, his 5th career NHL game. He was recalled yesterday after the David Kampf news, but 5 AHL games this year, coming off the high ankle sprain. If you recall, 2 goals, 2 assists, but suddenly I guess he's thrust into a 2C role. I'm curious to see about deployment. I think even the last couple of days, I think the messaging has been important. I think it was Brad Treliving saying yesterday, really didn't prefer to call up Minten. Like, you know, he enjoys and he wants the seasoning to take place and the maturity of the prospect in the AHL, but desperate times call for desperate measures. You call the kid up, and I think they're going to be very careful with the deployment of Fraser Minten, and I think that's a smart route. But now all the injuries are racking up. I'm curious how many minutes he plays tonight.
Yeah, he might be in a role where you try to give him success and confidence, right? Because there's no point of having him there if he's not going to be in a role where he can succeed, because you don't want to stunt his growth either, right? Because he is moving in the right direction coming back from that high ankle sprain. And high ankle sprains can be terrible, right? You look at Robert Thomas, broken ankle, and he was back almost sooner, right? And I've had a high ankle sprain. Goalie's obviously different, but they always had said that it's almost better to break your ankle than to have a high ankle sprain because of how much pain you deal with trying to come back. So I think he's going to be in a good situation tonight. I think they're going to protect him, but at the same time, these are times where, yes, you want him to be in the American League. You want him to kind of marinate a bit down there, but desperate time calls for desperate measures to get the kid up here and playing.
And you mentioned the opponent. This is always a good one. Not really being spoken about because I don't think he is starting, but Ilya Samsonov making his return to Toronto. He played on Sunday against Washington, so I assume it's going to be Adin Hill, especially in the mecca of Toronto, trying to make Team Canada. Adin Hill, that start makes a lot of sense. But do players care about this thing? Like, if you're Ilya Samsonov, and maybe he's a bad example, and you roll into town, do you want this game badly or what?
I don't know if you want it badly, but it definitely means something to you. There's definitely some sentimental value, I think, being back in Toronto where, you know, he made a lot of memories, and good and bad, but I don't think you really, once you start playing, it's just a game, right? I feel like that kind of goes out the window, right? I think there's been more meaningful stuff, and I feel like he would get a good welcome. I don't know. Like, I feel like at the end of the year there, when he opened up about what he's struggling with and kind of coming back and playing decent, but again, I don't really think I hold a lot of value into it. Sometimes it's easier because you have those relationships with players. It's like you don't even want to be involved in those games.
Well, dude, I tell you, this guy's gonna get a standing ovation in that video tribute because it's like, thank you for leaving. No disrespect, but like, I mean, it opened up the door for Anthony Stolarz to be a Maple Leaf. The guy's an absolute stud. So, looking forward to the video tribute. I'm going to be in attendance for this game, so I'll break it down coming up on Leafs Morning Take with Rosie tomorrow. So Joseph Woll will get the call for the Maple Leafs, 3-2-0, 2.40, a 9.02. What have you made of his season thus far?
Good. Up and down. I think obviously missing the start of the season and the lack of games in training camp is something we've seen across the board, that how invaluable that is. And I guess right now it's just that it's like I'm waiting for another thing to happen, right? I think I'm scarred by him, right? He's like, I think his game is still where it needs to be. He's moving forward. I think his games have been good, not great by any means, but I also feel like he can keep growing. I think his ceiling is still so high. I'm still a big fan of Joseph Wall. It's just that ability to stay healthy is going to haunt him until he has a stretch of games where we get 30, 40, 50 games out of him. And then we really see where his ceiling is, how much better he can get.
I feel really good about the crease right now. Like, obviously, it goes without saying, Anthony Stolarz has been fantastic. I like the spot to put in Joseph Woll right now. We talked earlier about that schedule. It is really a bizarre. They don't have many games the next little while, but you got to find your spots. It's been a week since we've seen Joseph Woll. Of course, that crazy come from behind victory in Washington, but I think he's slowly but surely getting better, and you can speak better to this. Just technically speaking, he looks more like the Woll that we saw specifically, I would say, in the Stanley Cup playoffs, where he's in a rocking chair, very Carey Price-esque. I think that's a positive thing. When you have a 1-2 punch and they're going at their best, man, this is going to be a tough team to beat, not to mention the guys up front who they have on the blue line. I think this team's in a really good spot right now, which is weird to say. Again, the opponent's going to be difficult, but also how many guys are out of this lineup right now? They're playing like a team.
Yeah, they are. And that's the most important thing, right? I think we talk about a little bit of lack of offense. They're not generating off the rush. I feel like that freewheeling game is kind of gone, where maybe that would be a concern if we were in a market where you're getting fans no matter what, right? So if you got to grind out ugly games that aren't as pretty, who gives a shit? Because the fact of the matter is, we want to build a team that can be good in the Stanley Cup finals and in the playoffs, to get to the finals, to try to win a cup. And I think that starts with their back end and the predictability of their game. And I think that's what we're seeing here, which is benefiting the goalies as well, right? I think both guys are feeling good. And that's when you start to gain confidence, and it's contagious across the team. And that's what I'm seeing so far. And I think it's going to be a challenge here moving forward with, a depleted roster. But this is where, if the system is right, sometimes you can just plug and play. We look at that for a lot of different teams, right? Where like Carolina, great example. They lose a bunch of players. No one really thinks they're going to be as successful, but the system is good. Brenda Moore coaches to it, and they're good. They didn't skip a beat here.
Yeah, the Canes have won, 13 of 17 to start the season. Freddie Anderson, just allergic to the crease, always banged up, not playing right now. He's out long-term. Kochetkov took himself out of the game last week. Like, they're not winning the cup, but they're a good team. It's going to be the same crap that plagues Carolina in the playoffs. But no doubt, it's going to be a challenging one. You talk about system. Maybe there's none better in this league right now than the Vegas Golden Knights. And Mark Stone's not playing, but Jack Eichel is having an incredible year. You talk about blue lines built for success in the postseason. Just look at Vegas's, whether it's Pietrangelo, whether it's Shea Theodore in the brand new extension. McNabb just got a new deal. They're big and heavy and strong. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this Maple Leafs, this very depleted forward core, how they do against Vegas coming up in this game. And systems specifically, I wonder if it's going to be a high-scoring game or more like a low-scoring type, low-event type game from both sides. I just want to get your thoughts quickly before we get to Jack Ivankovic in that interview. The numbers that Austin Matthews are staggering, man. Keep him in Munich for the next 2 months. 5-1-0, 3.17 goals for, 1.83 goals against. The power play at 34.8%. The PK 82.4%. Why, in your opinion, are the Leafs so good without Austin Matthews in the lineup?
I think because there's just more accountability on each player, right? Where at times it's like you take a step back and you always have those superstars where during my tenure in the NHL, we'd always have times where a star was out. And it's almost like you just galvanizes the team together, knowing that someone's got to pick up that extra weight, right? It gets spread throughout the lineup. And I think that's what you're seeing here, right? You still have superstars. You still have, obviously Marner and Nylander, but I think at the same time, it elevates guys and they get to be in a better role. And it's not the fact that they're a better team without Austin Matthews. It's just like it drags everybody into the fight a bit more. So I think that's what you're seeing here. But as we go over time and you talk about playoffs and tighter games as we get in the second half of the season, it's hard to really recreate, not having Austin Matthews. So I think this will be something important for this team to build off of, knowing how good they can be without him. But I think over time, you're always going to want to err on the side of Austin Matthews in the lineup.
Yeah, I think so. Guy who has 69 tucks in the NHL. Thank you very much. I'll take that. So just lastly, some lineup news before we get to this interview. Joseph Woll to go. Simone Benoit is going to be in for Yanni Hakanpää. We speculated upon that on Monday. It's been a turbulent start for Hakanpää. Looks very slow. Looks like a guy who hasn't played in a while. So give him a rest. I assume he'll get back in, whether it's Utah or the Florida games coming up next week. But Simone Benoit, I mentioned this on Monday, has earned the opportunity to get back in that lineup after missing a couple games. So back in favor of Hakanpää. Pontus Holmberg moves to center with Max Domi injured. So I wonder if they go, and this is the lineup from yesterday, by the way, with Domi being banged up. I wonder if Holmberg ends up being the 2C in terms of minutes at least. Because, again, that really struck me from Tuesday and the wording around Brad Treliving. I think they're going to be very careful with the deployment of Fraser Minten. So we hate numbering things in 2024, but I would think Minten's going to be the 3C. I would speculate, just my opinion, maybe he's on the line with Nick Robertson and like a Nikita Grebenkin, right?
Yeah, something like that. And I think maybe for Holmberg, it might be a shot in the arm too, right? To try to get some productivity out of him and get that little boost of confidence here. Because, for him, they're a guy that they need some depth scoring, right? And they haven't been really getting it. So maybe it is that little shot of confidence and a better opportunity for him to grow into his game here as the season wears on.
I love this Grebenkin kid on his first NHL game. If we win, I'll enjoy it. If we don't, I won't enjoy.
Very straightforward. I think we kind of assume that, but I love it.
Yeah, I hope he looks forward to his first shower with the team. That means he's an official NHLer when he showers with the boys after the game. I love that. The following interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com. So as mentioned, we had a chance to spend some time with a top prospect for June's NHL entry draft. We got the CHL Prospects Challenge coming up as they take on the States coming up next week in 2 different locations here in Ontario. And Jack Ivankovic, the number 1 netminder for the Brampton Steelheads, highly touted. We had a chance to spend some time with him. Enjoy. All right, Jack, thank you so much for doing this. First and foremost, tell us about taking part in the first ever CHL USA Prospects Challenge, a mini 2-game series here, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty special. I mean, getting picked for that's definitely a huge honor. And to be the first game, I mean, playing against US, I mean, and I think any CHL guy could agree with me. Like, you don't want to lose to the US. You want to play your hardest, especially against them. So, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty cool kind of playing with guys I know around the league and then just kind of being together for those 2 games.
Yeah, that's obviously exciting for you. And just watching your growth, you've done so well. And, on top of this game, it being your draft year and being on the scouting list, how does that feel about that? How do you compartmentalize that as you try to grow and get better and better?
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, I've dreamed about kind of getting drafted to the NHL for my whole life now, but I think I'm just kind of focused on what I can do and in these 2 games here and then kind of finishing the season out. I mean, I'm not looking too forward ahead to the draft. I mean, we still got definitely a long way to go with the season here.
I thought this is really cool to get 2 goaltenders, one present and one past. Huts, what do you remember about your sort of upbringing and sort of your moment that led to your, the starting of your journey to be an NHLer?
I think for me a little different than him, right? Like, Jack, you're younger, you're at the point where, you're a prospect to get drafted. I was the opposite, right? I wasn't really ready at that age, right? So it took a little bit longer. And for me, it's when I got to college and I was from 20 to 24 where I really learned how to train and, started to become more of a man. So for you, I think I had that runway of, having that maturity where, you're in this situation now, Jack, where how do you manage that for you? Like where I had a little bit more time, you're at a younger age where, everything's in your face, right? Social media and all the stuff that goes on with hockey. How do you like to handle that off the rink?
Yeah, I mean, I think my dad's definitely been a big help for me. I mean, he played goalie as well. He was drafted by Pittsburgh. So, I mean, kind of him kind of giving me advice on kind of what to look for moving over, but also just kind of staying away from the rink and kind of doing other stuff I like. I mean, I love golfing. I mean, going out with kind of some of my just buddies from back home. I mean, kind of sticking away from the rink a little bit and kind of just focusing on kind of stuff I'd like to do for fun.
I was going to ask that exactly. So your dad, Frank, of course, played in the OHL, drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins. Like how that must be so cool to follow in your old man's footsteps, eh?
Oh yeah, definitely so cool. I mean, I played my first game in the OHL in Oshawa where he played. So
Wow.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think your dad's right in that sense of being able to get away from the game is so important. I think for me, even over my pro career, like I'd have a bad game or a good game and just learn to park it at the rink and move on from it. And one thing I've watched, in some of your games, I watched a few clips, your puck handling ability, something that I prided myself on, right? I was a very good puck handler, especially at the NHL level. And each level, it felt a bit overwhelming, right? Because guys get faster, the forecheck. Is that something you focus on or how do you have success in that area? Because it's something that's very strong in your game.
Yeah, I think I've worked on that. I think my dad used to come on the ice when I was like probably 8, 9 years old, and he'd always dump pucks in or just throw pucks on net. So me to just pass for that. I mean, I think if I can get out there and kind of be like a third D-man and kind of break the D out and help our team get out of the zone, I think that's a big help. I mean, you don't want to be in the D zone. So I think doing anything by just practicing that all the time and then just kind of messing around with the puck a little bit in practice when maybe you're not getting the shots in practice or it's one end. I mean, I like fooling around with the puck, trying to do some tricks and stuff, but I think definitely something I take pride in.
How much of that is about communication? And Hutz, you can speak to this after Jack. Jack, like how much of the puck handling is about communication with your D?
Oh, a lot. I think honestly, almost all of it. I mean, me and the D corps kind of go over. I mean, the calls up, over, rim, leave it. I mean, my back's faced to play most of the time. So I think anytime I can get my eyes up, or even if I can, I think the D's just got to be there. They're another eyes for me, kind of helping me make the play and kind of helping them kind of get the puck out the zone.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a good perspective, right? Something you dealt with, right, is majority of D-men or forwards can handle the puck better than we can. So making a good, safe play, not putting pucks in your net. And I think you've done a good job of that. The other thing I really wanted to touch on, which I love, I can tell you're a bit of a gear guy, right? And I love the Cujo throwback. I know you mentioned that he was one of those guys that inspired you. And I always wore CCM and True, so I was kind of limited to what I could do, right? Where you're with Bauer, how do you come up with your ideas? Is there inspiration or because I like your setup. It's always looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think ever since I was younger, I mean, I've always kind of liked kind of the flashy kind of pads and stuff. I mean, I watched Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. He kind of has got those cool pads, kind of always trying to do some designs with that. I think just Bauer them creating design and them sending me kind of ideas that, I mean, I want to be the only guy to ever kind of wear the pads and kind of make up the design. So, I think just kind of being a little different with that stuff and, just kind of wearing it.
Who are some guys you model your game after in the NHL right now?
Yeah, I look at Jake Oettinger and then UC Saros, just the way that both of them can win games for their team. And honestly, their skating is unbelievable. I mean, I like to think my skating is probably one of the best parts of my game and kind of getting to pucks and kind of using my skating to help everything in my game.
Yeah, well, I see you didn't mention retired guys there, Nick, but I'm sure I would have been on that list if we mentioned retired guys as well. But, obviously something I see in your game, right? You move well, your skating's so important. I think something that is, for the general fan doesn't really understand how good a goalie needs to be on his edges and play. And, with all this coming your way, do you set goals for yourself in a season like this? You're at a point, or is it like day by day, right? Sometimes I would take it even 5 minutes into a game. But for you, like, do you have a goal for your season or just kind of take it as it comes?
I think I'm just taking it as it comes. I mean, obviously we're a good team this year and we want to win the Memorial Cup, but that's far in advance. So kind of just taking it day by day and practice by practice, game by game, and kind of keeping it kind of together, and we'll be pretty good.
Well, first I'll say you're in good hands with my boy James Richmond down there in Brampton. But Porter Martone, I think it helps to have a guy who can potentially go first overall in the draft. He has been outstanding this year. Just named the cappy of your team for Team CHL as you get set to take on the Americans here. What's it been like, and what's it been able to go through sort of this whole process with him? That must be extra special too, right?
Oh yeah, it's special when you have when you're playing with a player like that skill and just his leadership. It's pretty special. I mean, he's one of my best friends on the team. whether we're just going out to eat dinner. We stay together on the road, so spending a lot of time with him, just kind of talking and trying to keep each other in line and in check, and then just kind of not really focusing on that NHL draft coming up, but just kind of sticking with the season and then just talking to each other.
Yeah, I think you got a good perspective there of that, right? Like there's certain things you can't control, but what you can control is your effort and attitude every day. It seems like you bring it. Now for me, stepping away from your career, like looking at the Leafs, right? I'm sure you follow the NHL. What's your take on the Leafs right now? Because, with the goalies, with Stolarz, Wall, a little bit of battling back and forth here game by game.
Yeah, I think you need two guys to always be battling. I think I've watched Wall a bunch. I think he's a great goalie. Stolarz, I think he's been unreal for them right now. So I think having two guys that want to be the number one and kind of wanting to battle with each other and make each other better is definitely always a big thing.
Jack, the technical aspect is what intrigues me, and obviously I don't know much about the position, but it feels like a guy like Stolarz is always in the right position. What have you seen from his game technically? Like, why has he been so good for this team?
Yeah, I think just his hockey IQ and kind of reading the play before it kind of happens. I feel like just from watching, I think he knows where the puck's going to be before it ends up kind of getting there, and using his size to his advantage is definitely a big thing.
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think sometimes the goalies that make it easy, almost at times it's not as flashy. So we don't realize how much work is going in before shot to be in the right position. And, I think reflecting on my career and my experiences, something, if I could go back in time, I would have, ate better and trained better when I was younger and took advantage of that. I see that your mom is a physiotherapist. Is this something that like you're learning now to how to take care of yourself? Because we always talk about being a pro, especially on this side of hockey. Is this something that you're trying to implement into your lifestyle now?
Oh yeah, for sure. She's definitely been big on kind of rehab and kind of after games, always kind of giving me treatment and stuff. And we have a table in her basement at home, so always getting on that table, whether it's before a game or after a game, just to make sure my body's ready, because I know at the next level that's happening and you're playing a lot of hockey. So I think if you can make sure your body's perfect all the time, I think that's your best luck.
We talked a bit about goals earlier on. Obviously, you want to stay in the moment, take it day by day, all the cliches. But what would it mean to you one day to be on Team Canada for the World Junior Team?
Yeah, I think that'd be unreal. I dreamed of playing in that Christmas tournament there, and kind of, it's sad not to be home for Christmas, but if you're there, I think it's a pretty big honor. Again, I'm not looking too far in advance. We still got a bunch of games here, but it'd definitely be pretty special.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, right? I was able to go to 2 World Juniors, but I was in attendance. So I was in the crowd having fun with my buddies, which is a little bit different. Where I went on to play with guys, I used to always joke around with Shea Weber. I was the third goalie, but I was half cut in the second bowl there watching. So honestly, you're headed in the right direction. You got a good head on your shoulders. I think for you, building into this season is something that's very impressive. And is there a team that you grew up watching other than the Leafs? Is there like anywhere you would want to be or be drafted or an organization to be a part of?
I think just any team. I've never been kind of one team as I only watch them. I think I've watched multiple teams. Not just for the goalies, but I think some player. I just like watching some players kind of see what they can do, and kind of so just any team that drafts me, I think it'd be an honor to go to any team.
You talked about Ottinger and you, Saros. Do you have a favorite goalie in the NHL right now?
I don't. I think those two guys, I can really pick between either of them. So
they're both studs. They're both studs.
Yeah. I'm still like a John Quick fan, right? I like the old school guys that play goal and compete. And sometimes I think I was jealous of these, Jake Ottingers, Hellebucks they're so minimalistic and they make it look so easy. It's so impressive. And I think something over my career that I strive to get to, but I was usually, when I was off, I was all over the place. But I can tell in your game, it's something that you've worked on from a young age. You look very like you manage the crease very well. And like I said to you before you came on, you play a lot bigger than you are. Is that something that you've worked on?
Yeah, for sure. My dad was a big goalie. He's 6'5", so hopefully I grow. If I don't, I've kind of learned to kind of deal with what I have and kind of learn how to play bigger than I am, and kind of, I mean, at the end of the line, I mean, you got to stop the puck. So I think no matter how big or how athletic or how good your skating is, I think you just got to stop the puck. So that's definitely something I want to do, and I think I'm doing that.
Jack, very well said. Thank you so much for your time today, and best of luck with the Prospects Challenger, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
First off, great flow on the kid, man. I wish I had flow like that.
Yeah, he's been a turkey, eh?
Oh, absolute stud. So that's Jack Ivankovic, calm, cool, and collected. I'm curious to see how his future, what it looks like. I think that's so cool that his old man, like, he's following in his footsteps as well. That was a lot of fun, and I like the added wrinkle of this CHL USA Prospects Challenge. I think you get more out of the prospects when they're not really playing each other. They're playing the states, and he alluded to that right off the top, where it means a bit more, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and I think that's important, right? He seems like a very level-headed kid, and you know what I grasped right away is when I asked him, and I think out of turn by me, you talk about the draft, right? You don't want to overwhelm the guy, but you can tell he's just living in the moment, right? And that's tough to do, right? For a younger guy, I think that's prevalent. I think it helps having someone involved in hockey, right? Like his dad right there, and I think it's cool that his mom, helps him to understand how you have to take care of your body, and you kind of start to become a pro before you are a pro, especially at a younger age here. So seems like you got a great head on his shoulders.
Hope everyone enjoyed that interview, and many thanks to the Brampton Steelheads and the CHL for setting that up. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet in a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. Just some news and notes as we get your bet here, but the projected centers for the Leafs: Tavares, Holmberg, Minten, Lorentz. And it looks like it's going to be Aiden Hill. So we're getting robbed of the Ilya Samsonov revenge night. I guess we'll start tomorrow night in Ottawa. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is good. This is good for the boys. No Samsonov. No, the tribute won't be as long. He'll be on the bench. But I like the bet tonight. I like Marner to stay hot here. I think I'm going to go with an anytime goal and even a point. I just think he's going to be on fuego. He's still going. He's buzzing. His confidence is high. And when he gets it going, it keeps going in that direction.
Any bets you're looking at specifically?
I think I'd touch that anytime one. I also think I'm going to stay on the under. I think the way that Stolarz is playing and with Aiden Hill with this pressure, I'd be touching the under tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. I think both teams are really structured, system-oriented. If you're the Maple Leafs, that's probably the only way you can have success, in my opinion. I felt the same way about that Edmonton game, and then all hell broke loose. But I was looking at the under at 6.5, and then the late goals there, so it really cost me. Yeah, I expect, I don't know, like a 3-2, 3-1 type game. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, it feels that way. It feels like this might be a special teams night where it's 5-on-5 play is going to be so important. I think it's a bend, don't break situation. And I think for the Leafs, just staying in that format now of having so many guys injured and playing to the right system here.
Give me a Fraser Minten assist, please. Can we do that?
Yeah, that would be nice. I would like to see him, get in there and get at a point. And I'm going to be watching that closely. I'm excited for him. It's got to be a big night for these guys getting their really first taste. I know he's played a little bit, but this is where, he's grown a little more into a pro. So it's exciting.
Hey, Huts, we got a troll in the chat. Welcome to the chat, Kirk. I think his last name's Tuss. I don't know. People write in these names, and I'm always careful to read them on the show. But he's like, if you don't have a personality, grow a mustache. I appreciate that. 29 likes. Maybe this great content will go viral. Also writes, I wonder if they brag to their friends about this podcast. In fact, I do. After this show on a daily basis, I call my friends. I'm like, can you believe I had Brian Burke on my podcast, and Elliot Friedman, and Carter Hutton, and Jay Rosehill, and Claude Julien, and all these lists of names we've had on this podcast, but we stink, and we should go to hell.
Yeah, that's where they like it. You would have been like Mo is on The Simpsons where they call with the fake names there, Phil McCracken. You start saying the name wrong and stuff. So who knows? But yeah, I agree. It takes all kinds, buddy. I remember playing social media. It takes all kinds. But no, you got something good here, Nicky, and I'm always glad to be a part of your show, my man.
I forgot we had Daniel Negreanu on the show as well. Kirk writes in, do you have a communications degree? In fact, I went to 2 different broadcast schools. I went to Fanshawe College and the College of Sports Media. You can fuck off. See you, Kirk. Anyways, Huts, great stuff today. Looking forward to recapping this game. Jay Rosehill is going to be back in the mix on Thursday. We're going to get set for the Leafs and the Golden Knights tonight. Should be a good one. Should mention as well, if you're heading down, puck drop slated for 7:45 Eastern time. The Toronto Argos are going to be in the building. They're going to celebrate the Grey Cup winners, man. I love that.
Yeah, the boys, I think they'll be on the Jumbotron chugging a few beers, right? I feel like the football winning and hockey relations there are high in Toronto. So it was a big win for Toronto and big win tonight, hopefully for the Leafs, because they're going to have their hands full with the Vegas Golden Knights.
The chat's backing me. I love that. Thanks, guys. I feel like Jay Rose after a scrap with the Toronto Maple Leafs, just boom. See you later. Okay, Huts, excellent stuff. I know you're in the mix, I think, a couple times next week, so we'll reconvene then, okay?
Sounds good, Nicky. Thanks for having me on.
My main man, Carter Hutton. Look at that pick behind me, baby. Carter Hutton played 3 games with that team in Arizona, now the Utah squad, and I got a picture of it, damn it. So we love it. We're onwards and upwards on this show, folks. We're just trying to find our credibility. We're not legitimate. Just ask our chat sometimes. Anyways, Jay Rosehill back in the mix on Thursday. Full recap of this one. We're going to do a quarter poll look at this team moving forward the next couple of days as well. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys keep it wild every day. We love that. At the Leafs Nation 401. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. Don't forget, we're also available in podcast form. Just search Leafs Morning Take. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Thank you to producer Andy. For Carter Hutton, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Thursday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.